Hi, it's Techmoan and I have some hi-fi equipment that is kind of an oddity from the late 80s or the 90s. It's me, Jan Beta. Hi. Elaborate disguise. This is a Pioneer DT-555 audio digital timer. And I found this in the trash just 2 weeks before Christmas or something. So let's take a look at this strange device together, shall we? And shout out to Techmoan, great channel. So I found this in the trash on the side of the road a few weeks ago. And yeah, it was interesting enough that I couldn't pass it up. There were some other devices in there in the pile of trash. Most of them were rather boring, but this seemed interesting enough to pick up and at least make a video about. And maybe even use it in the future. We'll see. This is the Pioneer Audio Digital Timer DT-555. It's a timer and the designator is 555. I guess some engineer had some fun with this, because 555, of course, is the most famous timer IC that's been around forever, basically, and used in many, many projects. And this whole device is called 555, which is pretty fun in itself. But what is this, really? It has a standby button, an on button, a timer button, and it says AC outlet here for some reason. It has a seconds reset, reverse, fast, slow, time adjust. Not sure what that's all about. Seems to have some kind of display here. That's pretty elaborate. And a knob that you can just clicks in place. So it has indents here. You can choose different modes. Sleep, standby, timer set on, clock, second, clock adjust. And it says fluorescent digital display in the corner here. So this is probably a vacuum fluorescent display, VFD. And those look relatively nice and are pretty common in stereo hi-fi equipment of the time, meaning the late 80s and early 90s and probably throughout the 90s into the 2000s. As has become kind of a tradition on this channel, this is a kind of low effort last video of the year thing. So if the production values are not quite up to par with what I usually do, not that my production values are high in any way, but this might be even lower production values because I'm just winging this completely and hope that it at least makes you smile. I didn't know what this thing was when I picked it up, to be honest, and I've never heard that these things existed, and I researched it, and it's actually quite an interesting and useful device, even if you don't hook it up to a hi-fi system. So we're going to do some research together. I already did it, but I'm going to show you the documents I found and the manual that I found, and then we're going to look inside and see if we can make it work or if it already works. I'm not sure. I haven't tried this out. I didn't open it or anything, so we're going to do that on camera together. So I found this on Hifi Wiki DE, German site, that lists all kinds of hi-fi equipment. Pioneer DT-555, it seems to have been built between 1988 and 1999, so they built the same device for 11 years. Of course, made in Japan back in the day. It's only available in black, it seems. It takes 6 watts of power. It can switch 500 watts of power. The dimensions in millimeters, 1.7 kilograms. Yeah, that's about what it is. And it was 150 Deutschmarks when it was released. Not really super expensive for a hi-fi component, but it's not really a hi-fi component, as we're going to see. It's a switched outlet, basically, with a timer. And it has a sleep timer function, can be used to switch 1 Euro plug in the back. This even says, the datasheet, that it's 1200 watts that's switchable. 220, 240 volts version of this. We can set this as a sleep timer between 1 minute and 1 hour and 59 minutes, it seems. And these are the devices from the same series. So this matches these Pioneer devices that are actual audio devices. The receivers, CD players, a lot of stuff, Laserdisc players, tape decks, record players, equalizers, reverb, dynamic expanders, mixer amplifier, and there's another version of this timer. It's a bit higher spec, it seems. That's a DT-570. Can do pretty much the same. Yeah, probably just another design of this with more display stuff. This is the DT-570, so that was probably a later model of this same thing. Okay, let's look at the manual that I also got. This is the DT-555 manual that's easily to be found online. Oh, and interestingly, the American version seems to have 2 AC outlets, which makes more sense. This doesn't have that, as far as I've seen. Also has a frequency selector between 50 Hz and 60 Hz. I haven't seen that on my unit either, but yeah, we're going to look at that. And it indeed seems to have a display. Yeah, you can download this yourself. I'm going to look through this once I have determined that this device actually works or made it work. So it's a clock and it can switch an outlet, basically. And you can have a sleep timer functionality for that outlet, which makes it pretty useful actually, even if you're not switching audio equipment with it. Let me take a couple of seconds to thank the sponsor for this video, PCBWay, my favorite manufacturer of prototype PCBs of all kinds. They currently have their annual Christmas special running, so there's a lot of coupons and discounts on the website that's linked in the video description. So if you're interested in any of their services, they also do 3D printing, sheet metal fabrication, injection molding, CNC machining, you name it. And there's a lot of discounts on a lot of stuff at the moment throughout December. So if you are quick, you are still going to be able to catch a discount. Check out the link in the video description if you're interested. Back to our Pioneer DT-555. Yeah, so as you can see, this is the rear of the unit. This is 220 volts. It seems to be set for that, but that's not a real problem. We have 230 to 240 volts in Germany at the moment, so most devices that are set up for 220 volts work fine, but they're getting a bit warmer because there's a bit more voltage. This has a power switch. You can switch this off and on in the back for some reason. And our AC outlet. No grounds on here, this is just the Euro variety of the AC plugs, and it says 500 watts max here. Mine doesn't seem to have the input voltage switch, maybe that's internal on this one. We are going to open this up and see what we can see. It is rattling a bit, which is always a good sign. So let's see what we can find here. Just going to open this up. Oh, and there are 2 screws missing already. So this one was opened before by somebody who lost 2 of the 4 screws. It seems. I think it's only 4 screws. Let's see. In this case, it's only 2 screws because the 2 in the back were missing. This should open up like any hi-fi equipment of the time. Okay, what's that? Doesn't look stock. There is a random piece of plastic in here and a random piece of wood. Why? So yeah, there's not a lot in here, of course. There's a massive relay to switch the switched outlet. A little circuit board along the front here with the display and the settings. And these are ganged switches here that are connected to the circuit board, of course. Nice fuse there, nice ground connection. All looks pretty clean. Pioneer made some good stuff in those days. At least I don't know about this stuff that they make. If they even exist, really. The name exists still, I believe, but I'm not sure if they are making their own stuff anymore. But back then, this was manufactured by Pioneer in Japan, actually. Transformer here. All nicely wire wrap connections to the front panel. Oh, okay. This whole thing is completely loose. That's not good. Oh, and I can see why it is loose. And I think I can also see why this was in here. This was probably sitting against the circuit board to keep it in place. So these buttons work, they don't, yeah. These buttons don't do anything unless, yeah, now they're actuated. So the circuit board came loose. That might be the only problem that this thing has. And that should be a relatively easy fix. So this is the circuit board from the back, and this has these plastic rivets here to keep it in place, and they all disintegrated over the years, it seems, so they are completely loose. It's just clipped in basically with those. I guess what we're going to do is to power this on and just see what it does. It all looks intact, it's just loose, and it shouldn't short out with anything because it is in the position it is supposed to be basically, but yeah, everything else looks good. Can't see any burnt stuff on the backside of the board at least. Maybe this even just works. Let's see. Nothing to lose because I found it in the trash. Just going to put it on standby probably. Standby. Okay, let's see what it does. Fingers crossed this displays something even. Oh, yeah! Flashing zeros in the display. Clock adjust. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to adjust the clock because these buttons don't engage. Okay, now my AC outlet is on, this button here. And this is the function for the timer. Pretty straightforward. And in standby it just has a pretty nice looking clock, it seems. That we should be able to adjust with these buttons if we get the circuit board reattached there. The main functions are here. So yeah, let's see what we can do. I am inclined to take the whole front panel off. Oh, and it has some plastic nubbins. This has been messed with. These are some plastic dowels or something that are holding this in the bottom as well. So I'm just going to take these two screws out here. One of them is silver or brass looking and the other one is black. So I guess this was one of the original case screws and this is one of the original front panel screws. If I had to guess. Somebody really had a go at this. Oh, this is even, yeah, these are meant to be machine screws. This is the machine screw and the other one is like a self-tapping screw that was rammed in here. So probably the threads are gone. We're going to have to pull this knob here, I think. Yep. Oh, nice. That's actually pretty nice. Why did they use these plastic nubbins there? Okay, here's our buttons. Very nice construction actually, similar to what Pioneer did for their stereo stuff. I mean, this is technically a hi-fi component, so just no audio component. Yeah, this is our VFD display, or VFD, not VFD display. D is for display. And there's some little tactile buttons in here. Yeah, so this is basically what this is. Some buttons in here. Resistor, another resistor, couple of capacitors, and these awful, I don't know what these are called, these awful things that hold it in place. I'm just going to get this out of the way. It's loose as well, of course. So we should be able to take the whole thing out, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, that's our whole circuit board here. Doesn't look half bad, really. It's a really nice knob here, or switch. It's a good quality one. Probably Alps or something. It says Japan. Alps, yep. That's an Alps switch. So that's good quality stuff. That should still work. And yeah, the rest of it, there's not much to it, of course. I guess there's some kind of controller chip under the display, but I'm not going to mess with that. This is indeed a vacuum fluorescent display. It even has a little nubbin here that you can hit, so you can release the vacuum. Or rather, release the outside air into the vacuum. That's common on vacuum displays. Just quite prominent on this one. So yeah, nice little LEDs, some resistors. This looks a bit brown, but I guess, yeah, there's a diode. That's probably a Zener diode, keeping everything at the right voltage. Capacitors are not bulging or anything, so I'm probably just going to leave them in. Might go in and replace them in the longer run. And then we have these little plastic nubbins here that just fall apart. So yeah, these are just small pins that feed through this other part here. So you can stick this into there, which is not easy to do with one hand. And then this widens at the back and holds things in place. That's what these are supposed to do. They didn't do it because probably the plastics shrunk to some extent or something like that. Yeah. These are not the worst kind of attachment, but I guess screws or something would be a better idea. Yeah, I'm going to give this a quick wipe, I guess. Careful, because there's a vacuum in there. So let's see, what do we do? Let me check my parts bin. We could just use some regular screws, I guess. There's literally nothing surrounding these. I'm just going to look for some screws, I guess. The other side of the circuit board is held in by this screw here, around this knob. Oh, and this whole thing comes off, it seems. Yeah. Okay, nice. So we can clean it a bit better. This is an interesting little device. I wonder if it still works in terms of switching the outlet. These relays tend to break after some years, but we're going to find out, I guess. I think I found a good replacement for these things here. Just some M3 screws. I mean, it is pretty difficult to manufacture this because, yeah, that's probably why they used these. Because you don't have a lot of room for a screwdriver, let alone a powered screwdriver tool around here. But we should be able to get these in here. Can put a plastic washer under these, I guess. I have some plastic washers somewhere, I'm sure. Nylon washers. Okay, let's see if that works. So I have these screws that have kind of a washer integrated. And I put a little nylon washer on here to space it a bit from the circuit here. And then this should just fit fine. Of course, it's not good to use metal screws near circuit boards, but I guess it's with the nylon spacer, it's not going to do any harm. And if it does, there's even a fuse in here. Let's see if we can get these screws in there in some way. I think it would even make sense to use the screws from the other side, because we can get to the screws from this side with a screwdriver much easier. So I'm going to take the nylon washers and put them on the other end of the screws where the nuts go. Then I'm just going to hold with a pair of small pliers. Yeah, that works nicely. I think that's going to be fine. Little screw with a washer. This is the side that has the nut. And the washer is against the circuit board, and then I can just, through the front bezel here, if you take the front bezel thing off, you can just insert a screwdriver here. And just give it a bit of a turn, and the same down here. And the other end of the circuit board is just held in with the screws on the knob. That was a nice, satisfying little fix. I feel very smart. And of course, as I said, these VFD displays, no, VFDs without the display, because display is already in the D. These are high voltage displays, I think, so you don't want to mess with that, and ideally use some plastic screws. I'm not sure, probably they didn't run any high voltage traces through the connection points of the circuit board, but who knows. Just going to Twist this a bit. Yeah, very nice and solid. Okay. This should probably have fixed our problem. There's nothing really in the vicinity of those. And on the back side, there's also cutouts on the circuit board. I don't know if you can see that, but there's nothing directly on the screw post there. So this should be fine, I guess. So this needs a bit of polishing, really, but I'm not going to do that for this low effort kind of video. Just want to see this thing switch something on and off, probably a light. Yeah, it might just be dirt, mostly. Just wiping this with some IPA. It looks in rather good condition, it's just a bit dusty. And the corners are a bit scratched. But other than that, it looks rather nice, except for this part, which is bent pretty badly. Can I give that a bit of bend? Yeah. Somebody really wanted to push something in there. Not the best way. But I'm going to take good care of you, don't you worry. If this is useful to me, I'm probably going to replace the capacitors and things like that in the longer run. There's not a lot in there that needs replacing, maybe even the little diode and the resistor next to the diode. These things get, the Zener diodes, if you use those for voltage regulation, they naturally sink a lot of current and they get hot. So most of them, this might just be dirt really. Yeah, most of it is. So there we are. We are going to have to find some new screws for this part as well. That's not going to be a huge problem. My collection of screws is pretty conclusive. Yeah, that's how this goes. Okay, let's see if we can find a screw that matches this one. It's just an M3 machine screw. Oh, this looks pretty good. It's a flat screw. Yeah, should do the trick, I guess. Yeah, that still worked. So the bottom here, yeah. This is a bit bendy and yeah, this doesn't look great. Would be cool to insert these in there. These were in there originally, maybe. Maybe I can make these, hold this in this direction at least. That should work fine, I guess. I think that's probably what was in here. There's no threads in these holes, so these were held in with dowels. So maybe the ones from the front panel at least hold something in this direction. I guess you can still get these dowels somewhere. But yeah, I'm just going to use these here. Yeah, hey, that worked pretty well actually. I'm just going to try to put this in there. Yep. It went through. Let's put our little push thingy in there. Yeah. I guess this is how this was. Looking good. This here is a bit dusty and dirty, but yeah, doesn't look really bent or anything, so just going to give it a wipe. Kind of love these odd devices. I had no idea these things existed before I found this, and as I said, I didn't know what it was when I took it back home, but I was intrigued to find out. Please let me know if you used one of these back in the day. I think this was pretty common, so many manufacturers of hi-fi components had these. This predates, of course, the kind of all-integrated little stereo thingies. I'm going to give this a bit of a wash. That seems to be a bit dirty and or scratched. Pretty nice aluminum or aluminium knob here. Let's see if we can put this in the correct orientation. This should be all the way to sleep now. Sleep standby clock. Yep, looking good. Okay. Oh, we have to find another one of those case screws. Guess I have a pretty good one for that somewhere. Okay, I think I found a pretty good match in my little collection of screws. I always recommend, whenever you take something apart, just keep all the screws. Yeah, these look pretty much identical. These are the original ones, and this is the one I just got out of this little bin of screws. Yeah, it still needs a bit more cleaning, but I'm eager to try this out, actually. There are actually some nice use cases I can think of for this thing. Yeah, that's kind of perfect. And it's also a black screw. And as I said, the one missing screw was the one that was put in the front panel there. It looks exactly the same as the others. And it definitely didn't belong in that front panel because those were supposed to be machine screws. Yep. So let's see if we can set this up and switch something with it. Just going to get some sort of lamp or something. Yeah, so it keeps the time, actually. I can adjust the clock with the clock adjust setting here. And I can go in reverse for the clock setting with these buttons. There's a fast and a slow. All of these buttons seem to work. We can reset the seconds, and we can also adjust the seconds with this setting here. And if I reset it, it goes to 0 seconds. There's an extra setting on the knob for the seconds, which is pretty nice. Yeah, the display is super dim. I'm not sure if that's what it's supposed to be. Probably the capacitors need replaced. Usually with these VFD things, you can replace the capacitors and the display brightness is going to increase a bit. Seems to be pretty worn out, this one. Yeah, and the on-off button, or the on-off switch in the back, actually turns the whole device off. So that's what that's for, so you don't have a time display. And it just cuts the mains, basically, so we have to reset the clock again after that. It's for when you are not using this thing, or if you only use it as a sleep timer. I'm just going to set some random value here. Let's say it's 4 o'clock. Okay, clock adjusted. Reset the seconds. And then we can just use it in the clock position here. And I got this IKEA lamp out that I also found in the trash. Not in the same pile, but it's a nice little lamp. I like these. They are all plastic, super inexpensive. I think you can still get these. Nice design, very cheaply made, but it's a lamp. So we're going to hook this lamp up to the outlet in the back of this and check some of its functionality, I guess. Let's see if our outlet works. We can just switch it on with this, in theory. Yup. So our outlet still works. We can set it into timer mode, but we have to set the timer. Timer. Let's give it 1 minute or something. Yeah, we need to put it into sleep timer, I guess. So we can put the sleep timer to something like 1 minute, and it should turn off after a minute. And of course you can set a time where it turns on. That's what the other function is for. I guess this should turn off at some point. Yep, works no problem. Also noticed that the transformer hums quite significantly, so this is probably not the best clock. But yeah, it's 3 minutes now. The clock works. We can switch off the outlet with the standby mode. That's this device is in standby and the outlet is switched off completely. We can switch the outlet on. And there's a little LED indicator here. And if we put it in timer mode, we have to set the timer. That's now for 3 minutes. You can set a standby timer, okay. You can set the timer for on. It switches on the timer. This is a 24-hour clock, by the way. Pretty nice. yeah, this switches on at this time you set and goes into standby at this time. Yeah, we should put this into something like 4 o'clock. Oh, there we go. It works no matter what you have set up. Yeah, you can put an on time and a standby time in here and a sleep timer. And that's how that works. The sleep timer is just a countdown time. Yeah, standby means this is the time it goes into standby, and this is the time it goes into on, and that's what we set it out to do. Yeah, now it's going to start or switch the outlet on at the imaginary time of 4:07, and it's now 4:05 in this imaginary time zone that we just created. That's pretty neat, actually. And it seems to work no problem. So, yeah, nice little device. Yeah, it does appear to work fine still. And it keeps the time as long as we don't switch it off or pull the plug, the mains plug for the device. It doesn't have a battery buffered clock or anything, but also no leaky batteries inside, which is a huge plus. So you could totally use this, or I could totally use this for something. The transformer probably needs a bit of love. Could use some lacquer to kind of silence it a bit. But this is a 6-watt device, so it's not even pulling a lot of juice, not even expensive to run this all the time, just as a clock or something. It's pretty nice, actually. And yeah, if you just want to use it as a clock, that turned on, it's 4:07 now in our imaginary time zone. And you can just turn it on or turn it off, and you still have the clock on the display if you turn it off, so the timer is completely disengaged at this point and it's just off the outlet in the back. You can just switch the outlet on, so you can hook up your Hifi to the outlet and just have it on or off, or switch it into timer mode and maybe even record something from your favorite radio channel or something like that if you wire it up smartly. Yeah, that's what this thing was used for, basically. And as a sleep timer, of course, you could listen to your favorite music while falling asleep, or an audiobook or something like that. A CD at that time, probably. Very cool in my book. I hope you found this kind of fascinating. And I always find these little things that I didn't know about previously kind of fascinating. There's a lot of things that I just didn't know about in that time period, even if I was interested in hi-fi and things. But these kinds of devices I've never come across before. So maybe you found this interesting too. I hope so. As I said, this is the last video for this year. It was a better year than last year for me. I still didn't put out as many videos as I wanted because my mental health is still a bit shaky, but I'm improving, and I have improved basically all year. It's getting better all the time, as the Beatles would say. In no small parts, thanks to you, to the community, and all the people who donated money or amazing things to me. There's quite some amazing stuff coming up in the next year, 2026. Among other things, of course, I'm going to continue working on the Amiga 3000T, which is, I think, the most amazing donation ever. I'm going to make that work, I hope. And I have high hopes for it. It's not that damaged. So we're going to see that one booting up at some point, hopefully. There are some other donations that I got that are pretty amazing. I am going to work on some TI-99/4As, which I've been looking forward to for a long time and didn't get to. And I'm also going to work on some more VIC-20s. And of course, there's going to be more Commodore 64 stuff at some point. I'm just taking a bit of a break from C64s because I did so many. It's not that I'm bored of the Commodore 64 necessarily, but maybe you are. There's always going to be Commodore 64 videos on this channel, of course, because it's just my favorite computer of all time. So don't be afraid if you are here for Commodore 64 videos. You are going to be covered. I hope I can get into streaming regularly again next year. It didn't really manage this year. I think I did 2 or 3 streams maybe at the most. And I didn't really feel like exposing myself in that way because of my shaky mental health. But I am better, and I hope I manage to do that more in the coming year. No promises though. Don't want to put too much pressure on myself. There's enough pressure with getting out regular videos, which I did quite a bit more this year than I managed to do last year. So you can see by the frequency of videos that I am improving. I think that's it for today, and apparently for this year. Hope you liked this. Hope you have a great new year, and I hope to see you on the other side. Special thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon or Ko-fi or the YouTube channel memberships page or elsewhere. The links to that are in the video description and on my website in case you want to give me some support. I'm probably going to take a little break for the first 1 or 2 weeks of 2026. See you in a couple of weeks in 2026, which is hopefully going to be even better than this year. Thanks for watching. I'm Jan Beta. See you next time. Bye. Hi, it's Techmoan with a... Hi, it's Techmoan with an audio oddity. Hi, it's Techmoan with an audio oddity. Hi, it's Techmoan with a hi-fi oddity from the late 80s and the 90s. Hi, 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 it's Techmoan with an audio hi-fi oddity from the late 80s today. Hi, it's Techmoan and I have a...